Got something pushed on I'm not supposed to have. Today is February 13th. This is Ellie Gooch. I'm down at Claire's. We're going to talk a little bit. A few things. So, how are you doing today, Claire?
Fine.
We'll just, I'll just check this and make sure we're coming in okay. Well, Claire, probably we ought to start right at the very beginning. You came to Colebrook
In the fall of 41.
in the fall of 41.
Yes.
How did you happen to hear about Colebrook and the job?
I was working in the drugstore in Sanford. I worked there all through high school. Well, after I got to be old enough to work. All through college, and even after I started teaching, I went home summers and worked in the drugstore. And this man came into the drugstore and right over the soda fountain said, you know, he had my name on a list, and he said, you graduated from Farmington this year? And I said, yes. He had my name down there, and he offered me this job teaching up here in Columbia. Of course, I jumped at the chance because jobs were very scarce in Maine at that time.
What year was that?
41.
41.
Yeah.
Who was the man?
Mr. Knightley.
And he was
the superintendent of schools up here, see. He offered me this job. $850 a year. $85 a month. Well, hey, you weren't going to turn that down.
Were they getting that much over in Maine at that time?
No, some places in northern Maine, they were teaching for script at that time.
What do you mean script?
Money, chits. Like they'd give them money and they could cash it in. They could use it to pay for room and board, or they could use it in the stores to buy stuff in the stores.
Well, how come?
It's like artificial money.
Yeah, but
well, the little towns up in northern Maine were so poor. They didn't have money to pay teachers, so they gave them like credit slips, you know.
Yeah.
It'd be like savings, no, what do you call them? Gift certificates.
Yeah,
like.
Yeah. I know during the Depression they did that.
Yes. Well, they were still doing it up there in northern Maine when I got through teaching.
Mm-hmm.
When I got through college.
And you got through.
Yeah. So I jumped at this chance.
And you went to, where did you go to college?
Farmington.
In Farmington?
Yes. Yeah. It was only a 3-year course.
Oh, it's 3
times. See, I never got a degree.
Yeah.
Because it was just 3-year course at that time. Soon after that, they changed to a 4-year and gave a degree.
Yeah.
I never bothered to go back.
Yeah.
I had to keep taking courses anyway to keep up my certification stuff. I remember I went to, I signed my contract right there on the soda fountain.
You didn't?
Mr. Knightley just hired the teachers. We didn't have to come for any interview or anything.
And you didn't even come over and look over?
No, I just signed it. After he left, I went to the phone and I called up my mother and I said, Mama, I've signed a contract. I've got a job. Well, she said, where? I said, Colebrook, New Hampshire. Well, good. So hung up, went on about my work. Pretty soon the phone rang and it was for me. And she said, Claire, really, do you know where you're going? I said, Colebrook. Well, she said, that's way up on the Canadian border. She'd gone and gotten a map out and looked it up, to see where it was. And I worried the rest of the summer for fear they'd only talk French up here. And of course, when I came, there wasn't a French family in the town.
Oh,
that was so funny.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, Claire, do you remember, how did you get over here when you came and how that went?
My mother had a car and I used her car. Yeah.
And you drove yourself over?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And
my mother came with me in the summer. We came to look for a place to live. And some salesman, isn't that funny? I hadn't thought of that for years, but some salesman came into the store that summer and I was telling him I was coming up here to teach, and he wrote down on a paper, I think, names of people that took teachers. He was somebody that came up here or something. He gave me Mrs. Stickney's name.
Right.
And because Ellen used to take teachers, and Eleanor Noyce.
Yeah, she.
And Mrs. Gray.
Purdy?
No. It was Miles Gray's wife. Let's see. Aunt Hat, they called her.
Yes.
She lived where Wendell Woodard. That was her house where Wendell Woodard lives. Yes. And gave me those names. And Mrs. Sistos gave me about 4 names of people. So I came up, and Mrs. Stickney was no longer taking people. Mm-hmm. Eleanor Noyce was full. Mm-hmm. I went over to Mrs. Gray's, And she was sitting out there in the kitchen, poor old soul, little old lady, and she had her arm, she'd broken her wrist or something. She had her arm in a sling. She had decided that she wasn't going to take teachers anymore. It was just too much for her. But I remember she showed me her picture collection.
So
I wonder who got that.
I can't imagine.
Where do you suppose that is? She showed me in this glass cabinet. She had all these pictures, hundreds of them, you know. She had recorded where she got every one of them, and she showed me that picture collection that day. So then I went down to Etta's.
She lived down there on Colby Street.
Yes. No, the house that Robbie had. Yes, sure.
Yep.
Yes. And she had room.
She
had
had
one teacher there already. Lillian Lowry was there. And then she took me. I had the room over the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, she took Jackie Jarvis. There were three of us lived there.
Three of you?
Yeah.
What, you got your room, and did you have kitchen privileges?
A meal. Board and room.
Board and room.
$9 a week. And if we went home for the weekend, you got $2 off. See, it was $1 a week, $1 a day for your meals, and $2 a week for your room. But if you weren't there to eat on the weekends, you
get a refund.
got $2 off. You only paid $7, $9. Yeah.
And she cooked the meal for you?
Yes.
And that would be your night meal.
Yeah.
And
sometimes the cat would be sitting on the table.
Well, did Etta have that house all to herself, or had Fred and Josie got there yet? No.
Fred and Josie didn't come till after Geraldine. I don't think they came while Etta was still alive.
Well,
I think they moved down here after Geraldine took over the house.
What about Nell?
Nell lived there with Geraldine too, didn't she?
Yeah.
But Nell lived up in a house up on Carson Street or Pleasant Street. I'm not sure. One of those streets up there. She lived up there.
And then she moved along down.
I think she did, didn't she? I think she moved down.
She died. I know she died there.
Yes, she moved down. And Fred and Josie moved down there, but I don't think Fred and Josie moved down there while Etta was still alive.
Yeah, because they used to live up in Canaan.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know when they.
Yeah.
I'll be darned. So she had the whole house all for herself, and so she
took these.
She was really quite an interesting type person, wouldn't you say?
She sure was. She never went out of the house, but I'm telling you, she knew all the news. She and Nell would get on the phone every morning, and they would talk. I'm telling you, they would talk for 2 hours sometimes, going over everybody's business and everything.
And of course, she had that lovely.
We girls, sometimes we get to complaining because this was such a small place and there wasn't enough to do and everything. She'd say, "Well, girls, the road's just as wide going out as it was coming in."
No, she was really truly a Yankee.
Yeah,
she really was. And of course, she had that beautiful flower garden and everything.
She was out in the garden working that day. I went there to see if I could get a room there.
She was.
Yeah, and the last place I'd been had called her up and told her I was coming. So and she'd come in to change her stockings because her stockings were all open. When I knocked on the door, she hollered and said, "Well, just a minute." She says, "I'm changing my stockings. I'll be right there."
Isn't it? Well, she had chickens and stuff too, didn't she?
Yes.
Did she have any other animals? Or just a chicken?
A dog.
A dog and chickens.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, no cow.
But beautiful flower garden.
Oh, lovely flower
garden.
Yeah. Lovely. I think she used to. You could go there and buy them too.
But she was awful fun.
She was. Well, so when you actually came along over all by yourself, then without
no, Mildred Lubia. A girl that was in my class in high school named Mildred Lubia. She went to Gorham. She didn't go to Farmington, but she taught up. She was going to teach up to West Stewartstown, and so she and I came together. And you know how we came? Instead of coming up Route 16, we came all the way over and came up Route 3 through the Franconia, Franconia Notch. Instead of,
why'd you do that?
I sent to a gasoline company, and that's the way they routed me. They sent me, you know how you send in a Shell or someplace, and they'll give you a route?
Yeah.
And they marked it, and they sent me all the way over to, I don't know, I don't even know now, probably Concord. from Sanford and then right up Route 3.
You were
all the way.
You were at the wheel, and she rode with you.
Yes, because I had my mother's car.
Yeah, and she lived up in Stewartstown, probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That year, there were a lot of teachers came that year, you know.
What other ones?
Dot Gould.
That was the same year
when she
Dot
came. There was
excuse me, but where did she teach? Was she out there in Columbia?
She started out there in Columbia, I think.
One of those schools.
I think so.
Yeah.
She eventually taught around to a lot of schools, but I think she started out there.
I think so.
And then there was Jackie Jarvis came new, and myself, and there were 5 or 6 from Gorham. There was a girl that was named Gussie. What was her name? Gussie. But Mary Pease.
That was the same year
she came. And of course, all those girls knew each other because they had all gone to Gorham.
Yes.
There were about 6 of them.
And they were all.
Dot Blodgett, June Hibbert's sister.
Yes.
She came that same year.
And she was from Gorham?
And there was another girl came and was supposed to teach up to Bear Rock, and she stayed one night and left. She never stayed. I don't remember her name, but Dot. That's when Dot Blodgett came. That's how June got up here.
That's how June
got
here. Yeah.
Yes.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So they hired you to teach where, Claire?
I taught down to Cone School.
Where is Cone School?
That's the one down over the dip, the one that burned this year.
On Route 3.
That had been made into a house and it just burned.
Down there by the church?
Yeah.
I forget the name of that church.
Yeah.
That church.
Just down over the hill.
The one that burned. And that Rusty top there eventually.
Yeah.
Or before.
She taught after me.
She came there after you?
Yes. She didn't start teaching until after. I was down there 2 years. And then I got a chance to come in town and teach 6th grade. And Marguerite, that's when she started teaching.
She took over for you.
She hadn't taught.
Yeah. Well, you would drive the car down there every day?
The first year I had my mother's car.
She let you have it?
And I was hired. Yes, she let me. She didn't drive anyway.
Oh, she did.
It was really my car, but it was my mother's car.
Yeah, I understand.
And I did the school bus. I picked up Rupert Sims and the Gray kids. I stopped and picked them up on my way down to school every day, so I got paid something for using my car for that. Then the next year, this is during the war.
Yes.
By then.
Yes.
And you couldn't get tires. I could get gasoline ration as long as I was driving the school bus. But then my tires gave out, and you couldn't buy tires.
Right.
So I gave that up. And the next year, Sam Weeks ran a taxi here in town, and they hired him to go and pick up those kids. And Mary and I used to ride with him.
And you paid him?
I guess so.
You had to pay him.
I probably did.
Yeah.
Where
was Mary teaching?
South Columbia, down where the trailer park is today. You know that one there that's been made into a house? Yeah. That's where she taught, and I taught at Cone. They were 2 miles apart.
Yeah. So the two of you.
Yes.
And so you and she became good pals.
Yes, we lived together. That second year.
The first year.
First year I lived at Etta's.
Yes.
Mary lived down to Hicks's. That's the house that burned just this side of the trailer park there, where somebody put a trailer in there. That's where the Hickses used to live, Lyman Hicks and his wife. The trailer park
down there
I spoke about, the South Columbia.
Yes, way down there.
School there. This side of there was a farmhouse there, and then Dot, what the devil was her name? Dot Brooks. Let's see. Did she ever marry Leo Brooks? Dot. Well, anyway, I can't remember. But anyway.
And
that's where Mary lived there.
She lived
that
down
first
there.
year. But she used to come uptown after we got to know her and everything. She'd come up here for weekends and stay there at Etta's with us.
Right.
She already knew, as I said, she already knew Jackie Jarvis.
Yeah.
And of course, I got to know her. And then the second year, I left Etta's and she left Hicks's, and we lived at Weeks Tavern.
You each had a room there, you mean?
We had one room together, that great big room on the front.
You shared that
Looking at the building. It's on the second floor on the left-hand corner, that great big room. It's got windows all around it. That was our room.
Well, there were the gas station.
Yes.
Yes, right
Yes.
there. And that's
Yes.
where you were. Well, did you have kitchen privileges there?
We got our meals with Angie.
You did?
Yes, Angie Weeks.
Yeah.
Cooked our meals, and she
Is
packed
she-
our lunch for us every day. One
And
day we opened up our lunch boxes, and the bread was moldy that she made sandwiches out of. We never got over that.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
But she did that, and that was all part of the deal.
Oh, yes. I can't remember now how much we paid. Probably about the same as we
As it
paid
paid
at
at
Edda's.
us,
You know,
like that.
$10 or $12 a week for room and board.
Well, so then you girls, did all the teachers kind of pal together? Or
Oh, yeah.
you all kind of
Yes,
like a little
but we
group?
got into the town much more than teachers do today, because we were taught that when you went into a town, you should go to church,
Which you did.
and you should join into community things, you know.
Which you
And of
did.
course, we weren't in town very long before we got a postcard from Fran Hughes and Joe Nugent. They were putting on a dance over at the Grange Hall, and they'd be glad to have us come, you know.
Now, did they
to meet
mail
people.
those to all
They-
the teachers? Or
I guess so.
but you were
Probably
Mary
the
anyhow.
new people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the Grange Hall was over there next
Danny Hebert.
in
Yes.
that area.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so did you go to that day?
Oh, we sure did.
Yeah.
And everyone thereafter. We had a ball.
That
We had
was
an awful good time.
is
But we did get to know the town people much more than the teachers do today,
Yeah,
I think,
because
because that was ethical to join in to the community, you know.
well, when you were studying there at school, did they tell you that you
Yes.
should do that? That was
Yes.
part of your
Yes.
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 That this was part
Yeah.
of your
Yeah. And
job.
part of your job also was to do extracurricular things and without getting paid for it.
yes.
We never were paid for coaching the basketball or for doing the cheerleaders or any of that. We just did it.
It was part
It
of it.
was considered, you know,
You
part of your
didn't-
job.
You didn't mind it, did you?
No,
I mean,
that
it was-
made you more, you
Enjoyed
know,
it more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got closer
Yeah.
to them, I think.
Well, so you were okay. We'll go back. You were at Cone. Then
So I was Cone 2 years,
2
and then I
years.
came in town for 6th grade, and I
in
taught
the old
there.
white building.
Yes, and I taught the 6th grade
Yeah.
there. Yeah, and I used to have anywhere from 45 to 52 kids in the room at one time. We didn't have any aides.
No aides. And didn't you teach everything? It hadn't become
Oh yeah, it was self-contained
the
classroom.
whole
Yes.
job.
You had morning exercises, and you said the prayer, and you saluted the flag.
Then
And things would be a lot different in school today if they still did that.
I'm with you 100%
Yes,
on that.
I think so.
So that would be the way you'd start out.
Yes.
Who was principal then? Was that Florence?
Florence Parsons, I guess. Let's see. Gladys Brackett was for. There was a man. Then he left to go in the service. When I first came in town, there was, what the devil was his name? Blonde, good-looking fellow. Can't remember his name. But there was a man principal when I first came in here. And then he left to go in the service. And then I think that's when Florence probably.
Florence. And
Yeah.
when did Gladys get in there?
I think she became the principal after Florence. See, after I stopped teaching. So I only taught there 3 years.
You were at the 6th grade 3 years.
Yes. And then I stopped and started having my family,
Right.
see.
Right.
And when I was out, I used to substitute
Okay.
at that time, you know. And Florence Parsons got through in the middle of the year. She had a nervous breakdown. She stopped teaching, and I finished out the year for her. And that's when Gladys Brackett became the principal.
And she wasn't there too long.
No, and then Ruth
And
McLean.
then Ruth came.
Yes. See, Ruth was there teaching when I taught the 6th grade. She taught the 5th. She had taught out in Columbia near Jackson. She used to live with Alma Jackson, that family, the Jackson family out there. That's where she met Joe, because he worked on the farm there.
Well, she got here a bit before you other
1
girls.
year.
1 year before you other girls got here, like you and
Yeah.
Mary.
She was at Farmington with me.
Oh, you knew her in
I
Farmington.
knew her, not
No,
well, but I knew who
her.
she was, yes.
Yeah.
And she was there 1 year. And then she came up here the year before I did. She taught out there in Columbia. And then she came into town, I think, the year before I did.
Well, Claire, these rural schools all came under the supervision on Mr. Knightley.
Oh, yes.
I mean, he had
The town used to have two separate school. I don't know what they called them.
in town and
Yeah.
out of town.
Yes. Yes. And you had two separate school boards.
Two separate school
Yes.
boards. You wouldn't know when they combined those. No, must be in the records. I do know that they did do that.
And that's why we had such a big school board.
Yeah.
Because they combined, they put the people from both school boards on the first time.
Yeah.
And then they did cut it back to 7, I think.
Yeah.
They had 7 late
I think
years.
they've had 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I understand there's a movement afoot to cut it down.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, anyhow, so then you, let me see, you
So I
stopped.
taught for 3 years,
Yeah,
and then I stopped for 10 years.
And then you stopped for 10 years.
Yeah.
And so that would have brought it to what year, I wonder?
Let's see. 40, well, Lynn was born in 46. I stopped in the spring of 46.
So you must have gone back.
And must have gone back when I went back up to Stewartstown there. Must have been 56.
56. But
I went back, though, for a couple of years before that. I went back there when Jeffrey was there. Well, I guess that would be about right. He was about 3. 52 and 3 would be 55. Yeah. Around 55, probably.
So then when you went back into the schools, after you
decided... Because I was teaching up there when Frank started selling insurance, and I think that was 55.
55.
Yeah.
And when you said Stewartstown, you mean the Hollow School?
No.
You don't. You mean
the old Cedarbrook School, out the foot of North Hill, where I went for 2 years.
You were there for 2 years?
Yes. That's when I had the Dobson kids and the Marsha Brooks, the Brooks kids, and all that. Ralph Lynch, Martha Lynch, Harriet Edwards, all those kids.
But the Hollow School was there?
No.
It hadn't been built yet?
No. There was a rural school up across from John Owen's house, you know, where John goes over the Bishop Brook Road there, you know, their house. Right across there was a schoolhouse there.
Yeah.
They might have called that the Hollow School.
The Hollow School. So that Hollow School...
That's where, what's her name taught? Harriet Plant. She was teaching there. She taught there.
So you were out there for 2 years?
Yes. And then they had a series of teachers that next year, and about midway through the year, they came and asked me if I'd finish out the year. Nobody could handle the kids, so I went back up there. Back out to the Cedarbrook School. So I went back there the 3rd year and finished out the year.
And finished that one up?
Yes. Then I stopped again.
Then you stopped for a few years?
Yes. And then when they built the new school at the Hollow,
yes,
they came and asked me if I would take that, the upper grades. And I did.
That would have been like the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade?
5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. Upper 4 grades.
Upper 4 grades. So then you went out there.
Yeah.
And you taught, and there was one other teacher.
Yep. Joanne Davis.
Joanne Davis.
Had the lower grades at first. And then when she got a job in town in one of the primary grades. And then I went to see Mary, and I said, Mary, why don't you come back teaching? I said, there's going to be an opening up there this year. Now, why don't you go and see if you can't get that job, and you could ride back and forth with me, because, of course, Mary never drove. So she did, and she got the job.
And so that it was like old times.
That's when she had her interview, when Burley said to her, how come you ain't teached for 15 years? So funny.
So you two girls.
So we taught up there
together for a few years.
2, I think.
2 years.
And then I got the chance to come downtown. And I think Mary might have stayed there a year or so after that, and then she came downtown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, how long did you teach then? You came downtown, I
taught altogether 34 years.
You taught 34 years.
Yes.
Well, when you returned,
10, 24. Yeah, I must have been downtown here about 20 years.
About 20 years.
Yeah.
Well, when you came back, Claire, did you go to the high school building, or did you go to the old white building, or where did you go?
The high school building.
You went right to the high school.
That's when they had taken the junior high over there. And that was when they departmentalized.
That was
They needed somebody to teach the science. Marguerite wanted the math. Of course, I really wanted the math, but she had first choice because she was already in this system.
Yeah.
So they came and asked me if I'd teach science. I says, I know nothing about science. Well, they said, of course, you know enough about science. Well, I said, when I went to school, we didn't learn much about science. We didn't do much. Except plants and animals, maybe, or something, but we didn't do any of this electricity and, a lot of the stuff I didn't know much about. Well, the man that was the head of the department came up from the State Department, and he advised me to subscribe to some science thing, and I did, and I just learned along with the kids. And I think I did some of my very best teaching when I was just learning it for the first time myself.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah, as you look back.
Along toward the end, it got so old hat with me that I think you don't have the interest.
I think that is...
And that's why I think this idea of changing your job every few years is good.
A good one. Yeah.
Because you don't get into that rut.
And it's pretty hard not to.
Yeah.
I think.
Because when I first was teaching, the kids used to be so enthused, and I know it was because I was enthused myself, because I was finding out these things for the first time myself, and I'd get so excited.
Yeah. That they,
I remember when I made my first fuel cell, and I was so excited to see that thing make electricity just with salt and water or something, And I was so excited, and the kids would get so excited,
Because the teacher was. I think you're right.
Yeah.
Well, who was principal over there? Did you work under? Who did you work under?
Mr. Knightley. Mr. Owen.
Mr. Owen had arrived on the scene.
He had been there, I think, only maybe a year or two.
And so he came, junior high came right under his jurisdiction as well.
Yes, while we were in that building.
Yeah. And then...
There was myself, I had the science, Marguerite had the math, and Tris Nelson, do you remember her?
Yeah.
She had the English, and we each taught one section of social studies. Yeah. And then one of the high school teachers taught the fourth section of social studies. Yeah. I can't remember now who it was, but it was divided
That was the way it was.
Yes. And then for a while there were some other grades over there in that building too. Remember Doc Gould had a third or a fourth grade or something like that over there in that room behind Marguerite's room there.
No, I'd forgotten that.
Yeah.
Huh. No, I never knew that. That was odd.
Henrietta was over there, I think, one year.
Wasn't that odd?
Well, because they were they had to, what happened up to that old school?
I don't know.
See, that's when I wasn't teaching down here.
And I don't remember
what happened.
And people I've spoken to all seem very vague. We all remember, that.
Well, they had that ice business. They had to close the school. Remember, they had a couple of teachers taught in where the jewelry store was there in that building.
I remember that.
They taught there.
That was the first split class, wasn't it, Claire?
Probably.
That when they did, was that around Jeffrey's time?
I don't. He went up to the old white building. I don't know whether he ever went into that. I don't think he ever went to those.
Because they did split. I remember they split that.
Because they got so big. They figured they shouldn't have such big classes.
Right. No. But you have big classes.
Oh, yes.
And no help.
But we had lovely big rooms, especially on the front of the building. Yeah. The 4 rooms on the front were lovely big rooms.
Right.
Yes.
So then what happened?
Then we went to they bought that other building.
Right, down
Remember, first they just bought the one where the gym is.
Yes.
And the little kids went there.
Right.
Some of the grades. I don't remember which grades, and then they bought that other building.
Right.
And that's when they moved us back over there.
Then, you folks. And you went, and Rusty went, and who else went up back? I was going to say Nelson wouldn't have, would she?
No. I was trying to
How'd you work that?
English then.
Must have been...
Well, Jean came. Jean Maxwell came when we were first at the academy.
Oh, she had arrived.
Yes, she taught at the academy. She had arrived. Yes. So she had the English.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we still all had a section of social studies there for
You
a while.
continued that.
But then they got a social studies teacher after a while, I think.
And then, but when you moved back, when you came over to the Catholic building for the 7th and 8th grades, when they get situated, then you came under Mrs. McLean.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then you were there. How long were
Until
you?
I retired.
Until you retired.
Yes.
Well, that's interesting. Things have changed so much. You must see it, Claire, in the educational system
Oh,
in
yes.
Colebrook.
Oh, yeah.
And we have all these aides and our special ed. It's a whole different ball game.
Sure is.
It's I find it hard to keep up with what they're up to because I think we have a lot of things to think about as far as our education system goes in Colebrook.
Yeah.
So anyhow,
I don't know whether the kids that graduate from our high school now still do as well when they go away to school. For years, we were very proud.
Very, very
of the kids that graduated from here because they got into some very good schools without going to prep schools.
That's right.
You know,
that's right.
And they did very well.
That you are right. But we seem to still send our kids off. I guess some go to Dartmouth.
Still get into good schools.
Yeah,
I
think so.
Yeah. I think you've got some very dedicated teachers in the primary building up here. I don't know about the junior high so much because I don't know them, you know. But I think some of those teachers in that primary building work very hard. They go early in the morning and they stay late.
But they aren't expected, though, to do extracurricular
No, they're only
things. I mean, they're just there to teach
if they do
school.
anything extra, why they get paid.
They get
now.
paid,
Yeah.
Here we go. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
well, Claire, so we were talking about, and you did say something that didn't get on the tape about respect in teaching.
Well, I think that's, a lot of the problem. I think they don't have respect because they don't fear any consequences. No. They've just been fed this stuff about their rights,
Yeah. Yeah, I sure do.
A man was here in the house the other day, and he said that one of his grandchildren, his daughter-in-law came down and said she didn't know what she was going to do. Her boy, I think he was 11 years old or something like that. And he said to his mother, "You can't make me do that." And of course this grandfather said, "Boy, you send him down to live with me. Now show him who can make him." But
it is. That's the way it is today.
Yeah. It is.
There's no question.
Too bad.
It is too bad. And
we used to have such a good time. Like down there at Cone School. There was that nice hill. You go down over a dip to go to that school. And there was that nice hill right in back there. And the kids used to bring skis and sleds or pieces of cardboard. And we'd all go out at noon hour. We'd eat our lunch and then go out and ski or slide on that hill, As some kid that went down there to school, we were talking about that just a little while ago.
And remember
And what a good time we had now. Oh, Francis Gray. I think it was Francis came to buy some sugar and stuff, and we were reminiscing about it. Yeah, what a good time we used to have down there at that school.
Well, Claire, when you were at that school, that was a wood stove. And,
the big old wood stove in the middle of the floor.
And the outhouse.
Like a jacket around it. They called them jackets around it, Hot. In the outhouse.
Yeah.
You went in that back door, and the outhouses were on the left there in the shed.
Yeah.
There was a hall, like a shed. And one for the boys and one for the girls here. And then this door here went into the big main room.
Right.
Yeah. I think they did move that school a few years ago when Marguerite was there, maybe, or after that. I can't remember. Was she there when they closed that school? I can't remember. But anyway, they did move that back and put it on a foundation and put a furnace in, and I think they had running water in that school.
Before.
See, our janitor, whoever one of the kids would be the janitor. I remember Dorothy Adair was my janitor. She lived near enough the school so she could go home at noon and get another pail of water. She brought a pail when she came in the morning, and then in the afternoon she'd go home at noontime and bring another pail of water. And I can remember I was young and idealistic, and I had the kids all get a toothbrush, and we had this row of nails up back of the sink, and I made the kids brush their teeth after lunch at noon. And I started a hot lunch program down there. And sometimes we had card parties where I first met Ellsworth. He used to live, where he lived? He had a card party to help raise money. Some of the parents had card parties around their houses, and they raised money to buy stuff for the hot lunch program. I brought a 2-burner hot plate up here from home, and I'd have like hot dogs, or I remember one day when I stopped to get Rupert Sims, Mabel was standing down there, and she said, I wanted to tell you I'm going to send down some beans and potato for your lunch tomorrow. I said, oh, that'd be nice, They used to do that sometimes. And then afterwards I thought, beans and potato, isn't that a funny thing to have? I was thinking baked beans and potato. I thought those are funny things to have together. When it came, it was our beans and potato. I never heard of that,
You mean the one
we never had
with the cream
and stuff. We never had that in Sanford. Never heard of it I came up here. Cheese and potato.
It's kind of traditional up here,
Yes, I think so.
Because I know Bob had never heard of it.
But I remember thinking all night about that.
Wondering about
that was a funny thing. I wondered if I should get some hot dogs to have with it, too, or just have...
Oh, isn't that cute? God.
But,
Claire, now, Frank, you must have met Frank.
My second year here.
Your second year, and then you
Actually, I met him the very first time, the spring of that first year. Of course, we went to all the dances, like I told you, and we went to his senior ball.
Right.
Because he was just graduating that spring of 42.
Right.
So. And we went to that dance, and I danced with him there that
Was that
night.
the first dance?
And that was the first time I ever knew him.
Yes. Well, and Mary would be there too. She'd go, you girls would kind of go to that dance by a bunch of you together and then dance with people.
And then in the mission, I'd drive them. I was the only one who had a car. I'd drive them down. We'd go way down back of the creamery and park down there, and the girls would have a cigarette. I didn't smoke then, see, but you never smoked in public
and you don't smoke now, so there we go.
No.
Yeah.
But, that was so funny. He used to drive them way down there, way out in back of that creamery so they could have a cigarette.
That was frowned
They'd have lost their jobs if they'd been...
Well, Claire, by the time you got here, you could get married and still teach. Could you?
Yes, because it was during the war.
So you could?
Yes.
Because there was...
Just before the war, you couldn't. Because I remember that's when my sister had to stop teaching.
Yeah.
It was because she got married. Yeah. But then after the war started, there became more of a shortage of teachers, and they let you stay in your job. But not when you were pregnant.
As soon as that was discovered?
As soon as, then Frank got out of the service, and I got pregnant in January. And I just taught till April. I couldn't finish the year. Yeah. Because I was beginning to show.
Once became a parent.
Oh, yes.
Was amiss. So like you teamed up with Frank, and like Mary teamed up with Charlie Pease.
Well, not immediately. No. That first year we were here, we went out with all different people. Yeah. But we started going that next year. And we started going. Yeah. I started going with Frank, and she went some with Charles. Yeah. And then when I left down there to come into town, she left and went to Plymouth, Mass. See, she didn't get a job here in town, and so she left her school down there, and she went and taught down in Plymouth, Mass for 2 or 3 years. Yeah.
She was still going. She was with Charlie.
Yes.
I mean, they were pals.
Yeah.
Well,
because he went in the service too.
So that wasn't.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have been. Yeah. And then of course Frank went in the service.
Yeah. And I was still. See, it was that spring of that next year, the spring of 43 it would be, that he went in the service. Yeah.
And then you got married.
We got married in 44.
44.
And I was teaching in town then. Yeah.
And then
he got out in January of 46.
Yeah.
He got out.
And you were living down here where Jerry and Paulette lived.
That's where we went to live.
Right after you got married?
When he got home from the service.
When he got out of the service,
yes.
We went in there.
Yeah. Upstairs.
Upstairs.
Yes, Mary and Edmund were downstairs.
And their father owned the building?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, he bought it from the Johnsons.
Right. And so where we are right now is just a part of the farm? Your house?
Just a field.
Your house.
In fact, during the war, they used to pay people to raise beans for the war effort there, remember?
Yeah.
And right in this field here he planted some beans. In fact, Mary and I came down here that summer and picked some beans for him. Yeah.
So then you moved into the old Johnson house.
Yes.
And then you said you had to stop work because you were going to have a baby, and of course the baby was Lynn.
Yes.
And tell me a little bit about that. How did where did you have Lynn born?
Oh, we went up to the the nursing home up to Stewartstown. That was the hospital. Then third floor.
Third floor was maternity?
Yes. See, the jail, and then there was the county home.
Right.
And the people that had to go to live, like in Sanford, we used to call it the poor farm, but they called it the county home, And but the third floor was the hospital.
And that was for everything, not just maternity, but was for...
Oh, that was our only hospital.
And the third floor was the only floor that was used?
Yes.
For hospital use?
The inmates, the people that lived there.
Had the first two floors.
Yes.
And then the hospital.
Yeah.
And the surgery room and everything was up on the third floor.
Yeah.
So that was where people went to have their babies up there.
Yeah. Paid $50 for the whole. That was prenatal and postnatal and delivery and everything.
And the room
That's
and
all
everything.
Lynn cost us was $50.
Boy, what you got a bargain, huh? Didn't you get a bargain? You got Lynn besides. My gosh, it's wonderful.
Yeah, but when Lynn was born, there were 3 babies born that night. Of course, this is during the post-war. These are what do they call them? Baby boomers.
Oh,
is that what they call them?
That's what they. Yeah, that's right. That's what we call them today.
Well, Lynn was part of that. See, and Joe
Nugent.
Yes. And Mary Keezer and I.
You 3.
See, yeah, I was due the first part of October.
In that year, and give me the year again.
46.
46, okay.
Yes, I was due the 1st of October. And then Mary was due around the 20th.
Right.
And Joe was not due until 2 weeks later.
Right.
But we were all went the same night.
That's incredible.
Yes.
Isn't that?
And they told us then the nursery up there, I think, was supposed to handle about 4 babies. And Lynn was the 14th baby. No, Bobby Keezer was the 14th baby that they had up there at that time. And I remember one of the nurses saying if they had any more, they'd have to start using bureau drawers. They'd used all their clothes baskets. All their bassinets and all their clothes baskets. And they said, any more, we're going to have to use bureau drawers.
Oh, my God.
Keep them in.
Well, yeah. But you got there first. You were the first of the 3 of you.
No, Joe.
Joe got there first.
Yeah. See, she was early.
Yeah.
She was early. And I was late. And Mary Keezer was right on time.
And she was right on time.
And we'd all hired J.C. J.C. Gould was the one that everybody used to hire for their baby nurse.
She was like a registered nurse?
Yes. She was a nurse. Yeah, she was a regular nurse, and everybody hired her to help in the delivery and look after the baby. You hired somebody to look after your baby while you were in the hospital.
They didn't have a nurse available for you.
No, everybody had a special nurse for just them and their baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. And J.C., and we all 3 had hired J.C., and then we all had the babies because they were 2 weeks apart, supposed to be, see. Then they all came the same night, and she specialed all 3 of us.
All at the same
time.
The
mothers and the babies. While they were in the hospital.
And, of course, you all 3 were all good pals.
I can remember when I was in delivery, the nurse coming in, or a girl from the office or something came in and said to Dr. Norris, and Mary Keezer just called up, and she's on her way in. Oh, poor Dr. Norris. I think Dr. Kelly delivered Peter, Joe's baby. But then Dr. Norris had me and Mary.
2. Yeah. Well, how long did you have to stay in the hospital in?
Let's see. I was in about 9 days, I think.
9 days.
When I had Lynn.
Yeah.
And then with Jerry, it was maybe 7 days.
And you had Jerry up in the same hospital.
Yeah, and Jeffrey.
And Jeffrey was in the same hospital.
Yes, oh yeah.
And it hadn't changed, I mean, at all? I mean,
No.
you were still just third floor.
Yeah.
It never.
Yeah.
And you still had your own private, special kind of nurse? Or did they have
I don't think
nurses?
I had a nurse when Jeffrey was born. I think they'd gotten away from that then.
And they must have had some in-house nurses that would help.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You'd just be on the regular patient. I don't think I had a special nurse, but I had JC again for Jerry. I think.
You did?
I think so.
Yeah.
If I remember
and that was the way it was done.
Yeah. You had a baby and you were in the hospital for a week. You had a special nurse. Then you came home and you always had somebody to help you.
Did you?
Home. Oh,
you
yes, Mrs. Rainville.
What Mrs. Rainville would that be?
Well, she became Mrs. Gould. She'd be the grandmother of Eddie and all those people.
Okay.
Yes.
And she came
Mrs. Rainville was she came to your house and kept house for you and helped to look after the baby.
Would she cook?
Yeah.
Cook meals?
Yeah.
And stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. She came into your house and lived right there for a week. And then after she left, my mother had come for a week.
Then your mother came.
So we had somebody with us for about a month.
Yes,
almost.
which is wonderful, really, wasn't it? To have all
These
that help.
kids today, they stay in the hospital overnight.
Yeah.
Then they go home and they stop and shop on the way home. With that little brand new baby. Haven't you seen them?
Yes, I have.
Yes.
I have. It seems
I don't know how they do it, really.
But I do think that the men are more involved than they used to be.
Yes, I do think men help a lot more. Yes, they do.
But of course, back when we had all this other help, the men really didn't have to do that much.
No. I can remember, though, just itching for that Mrs. Rainville to get out of there so I could start
having your own.
Because she wanted to do all the tending of the baby. She bathed the baby and she fed it and everything, and I was just itching to get my hands on that baby. I remember I'd be glad when she was gone.
I bet you told Frank that, but you said, I can't wait for her to go. Oh, dear.
Yeah.
Well, those
things were a lot different.
They certainly were a lot different. That's life, I guess. Not only were those things different, but so many other things have changed in Colebrook. There used to be, the gang that you traveled with.
No, you don't want me to tell you stories about that.
No, because we'd have to censor it, and we don't want to do that. But didn't you always kind of used to, of course, the stores are open on Saturday night? When you first
Saturday
came,
night was a big night.
You remember that?
Oh, I certainly do.
And would you and Mary go up and sit on Main Street sometimes?
Sometimes. That was entertainment. Sometimes you'd go up and take your car up early and
to get a spot.
So as to get a spot,
Well, what did you do? Just
sit there and watch people, and people'd stop and talk to you.
And go down and get a little popcorn from Harold.
And of course, we couldn't do anything till the guys got out of work, and the stores didn't close till 11 o'clock. You couldn't do anything Saturday nights if you were going to go with your boyfriend, because they were all working in the store.
Yeah.
See, Charles was in the clothing store.
Which clothing store would that have been?
Gilkey's.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And Frank was...
He worked at Royals. Well, of course, that first year, I was going with a fellow named Donald Robertson, and he worked in Royals.
So
he didn't get down until 11 o'clock, see. And then Mary was going with Paul, that first year. Paul up to...
Was it that one in Pittsburgh?
No, up to Beach Falls. Paul Tebow. You know him?
Yes, I do.
Still skis all the time,
Oh, he does?
Yeah. Yeah, he and Mary went together that first year.
I think I had heard that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you girls would many a Saturday.
We went to dances Friday nights. They had dances Friday nights up to Redman's Hall up there in Stewartstown, wasn't it?
But up on the second
these
floor?
These dances that they'd have here at the Grange Hall would often be Friday nights.
They'd be Fridays.
Yes. And then, of course, the movies were there.
Yes.
Then. So we could go to movies.
Which you would do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And you get some popcorn from Harold LeGros?
On the main street there, he sold it.
Yeah?
I don't remember ever doing that.
You don't remember having that?
No.
No?
Not till Frank started selling it.
Yeah. He must have
Well, anyhow,
he tried to buy LeGros's old machine, and LeGros wouldn't sell it to him. He probably told you that. Yeah.
Well, as I remember, they used to mark your tires because you couldn't go and park there on Main Street all night.
Well, that was later on.
Later on, you had to move along.
Yes, they started restricting your parking.
Yeah.
That kind of put the kibosh to the Main Street business.
Because that really was.
But Saturday night was a big night. All the farmers came in, and you saw all these people lived out on the farms, and they'd come in and do their shopping.
Everybody visit.
Go to the movies.
Yeah, go to the movies.
They go back. Some of them would wait and go back and pick up their groceries after they got done at the movies.
Yeah.
So the stores all had to stay open.
Yeah. Well, was that Saturday night?
Friday night has never been like Saturday night was.
No.
Of course, the fountains.
Did? No.
Yeah. Did you hear him say? Did you hear Timmy say the other day that they're selling their cows there, Grady and Eleanor?
Yeah, I did hear that.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
I guess they're still going to keep some young stuff.
Oh. I was wondering what Bruce would do.
Anyhow, so Friday night never caught on, but wasn't it kind of traditional for a while here in Colebrook for a gang to get together after the stores closed, and they would either go to dances or have house-type parties?
Yes.
And I don't think there's as much of that kind of thing now, do you?
I don't know.
No.
I wouldn't be in it anyway because all my friends are dead.
Yeah.
But the crowd that used to get together,
Yeah.
there aren't many of us left.
No.
But the young people, I don't know whether they do that. I think television stopped a lot of that social stuff. Don't you?
Yeah, I do.
We used to have to get together like that, and now the only place you can go to dance is an old bar room.
Yeah.
Where the dance floor is about as big as this table.
Right. No.
And that's all.
Yeah. But it used to be you go right to the town hall and dance your little feet right off.
Oh, of course, we used to have the big dances.
Yes.
The firemen had Thanksgiving.
Always.
The Legion had the Armistice Day.
Yeah.
The Auxiliary had New Year's.
Yeah.
And then there were the school dances in the spring.
In the spring.
There were, and we wore long dresses, got all dolled up for all of those dances.
But there weren't any tables or anything there.
No, you just went and sat around the edge.
Around
the men
edge.
stood around in the corner, and then when the music started, they'd come and ask you for a dance.
Yeah.
You'd sit there hoping certain ones would ask you and certain ones wouldn't.
Yeah. You might leave the hall at intermission and go to somebody's
to somebody's house and have a sandwich and a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you'd come back to the dance.
Yes.
And when I tell kids that, that now people sit down around tables,
Yeah.
But we just used to perch.
Yeah.
Perch.
Yeah.
And you said for a lot of these dances, people were dressed right up.
Oh, yes.
They weren't just casual.
Oh, no. All of the Armistice and New Year's, especially, were long dress affairs.
Right.
I don't remember that the Thanksgiving one was so much. But we all went.
Yeah.
See, we had our big Thanksgiving dinner and everything, and then went to that dance at night, the fireman's dance. You saw people that you hadn't seen, since the year before.
Yeah.
They'd all be home.
But that did wind down.
Yes.
That kind of thing did wind down.
Oh, yeah.
And
I think your nightclubs. And then television.
And television.
Yeah.
And television.
But your nightclubs came in. You see, they didn't used to have any nightclubs.
No.
You didn't go out anywhere. They had beer parlors, but you didn't go to beer parlors,
Right.
And so if you wanted to have a party, socialize, you had it in your own house.
Yeah.
Everybody brought their own bottle with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then, of course, not only that kind of thing went on, but you folks are also involved in those American Legion shows and things like that.
Our home talent stuff.
Yes. Now, when did those?
Such a good
when
time.
did those start? Claire?
Right after the war.
Right after the war. Now,
because Dr. Gifford was responsible for a lot of them, and Stuart Frizzell, and then Irvin Noyce wrote a couple of shows there. Remember, a couple of musicals, and I guess he and Ellsworth, did Ellsworth make up the music for some of those? They even wrote some songs for some of those shows, Gee, we really had some good shows. And we didn't say we couldn't be in it because we had a little baby. You'd get a babysitter. Of course, you only had to pay him a quarter.
Yeah, but a quarter of them was fairly good. Well, Claire, who sponsored those? Oh, was that American Legion?
It was the Legion shows for a while. The church used to have the minstrel shows.
Our church, the Congregational Church, had the
Congregational
minstrel.
Church had the minstrel shows. And then the Legion had these shows like that Herbert Gifford, like Klondike Night and Sailors Anchors Away. What was the name of that? We did one that was the Sailors. We did the Klondike Night, and they would have different themes, you know.
Right. Well, what time year span would you call that for those shows?
In the wintertime, after
like
Christmas.
After the war.
Yeah, they started right after the war, and I think they continued on pretty much up through the 50s.
Up the 50s somewhere.
Yeah.
And mostly all American Legion people were in them.
Yes.
And was that the money that went for the swimming pool fund, or was that not?
I don't remember that was.
No.
For the swimming pool fund.
It went right into the American Legion treasury.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Right. Do you remember anything about that swimming pool fund or anything? You know, it's always been that talk. There is this account.
Yes. Well, they used to have things around.
To raise money.
You know, the one that everybody talks about is they have an auction out to the Balsams or something.
That's right.
Where they raised money for it. I can't remember. We used to do different things, but I don't remember
to raise this money.
For. Yeah.
Well, let me see, Claire. We kind of skipped right over that. I don't know how I happened to do that about the war. Now, you lived here in Colebrook. What are your memories of the home front during the Second World War?
I was chairman of the Junior Red Cross.
Well, there we go.
And I can remember having selling raffle tickets and having a drawing down to the theater, Jack's Theater there, to raise money for the Junior Red Cross. And then I can remember going up over the old town hall, holding the bandages. Somebody must have told you about that.
Well, that's fine.
We used to go. They used to have a room upstairs over the Oddfellows place, I guess it was. It's one of those buildings along there, and we used to go up there, put the white things around our heads there, you know, and sit there at these long tables and fold bandages.
Right. Did you knit as well?
And used to knit.
Knit?
Yeah. Used to knit scarves. I never did socks because I wasn't a sock knitter, but
you would do a
scarf. Scarves, yes.
Yeah. Would many women? Was this a fairly big organization, or?
Oh, I think so. And I don't know who sponsored that. Who did that anyway?
I can't remember.
I can remember going and working on it, but I can't remember who did it. Whether it was the Red Cross that did that, or...
Well, May LaBar talks about being involved, but hers wasn't the Junior Red Cross.
Oh, well, no, the school, I did the Junior Red Cross, and that was getting the young people.
Well, I mean, like high school type kids, you mean, or
no, elementary. All the kids did things for the Junior Red Cross.
And that's where you did yours. And would those kids be up making bandages? And
no, when I went to do that was for the
regular.
Yes.
Well, tell me, did you ever go spotting airplanes?
Yeah, oh, yeah, Saturdays the teachers did it.
Where did you go?
Out across from the golf course. Now let's see. It was out here on Route 26, and it was across from the golf course. Along maybe where Deanna's house is?
Right in there?
Right in there somewhere, maybe. There was one of those things where they lookout thing.
Was it a tall building? You mean
not awful tall, but it was like two stories anyway.
Like a tower, like a tower that went up, and you'd go in there and climb up probably to the top.
You just watch, and if you heard an airplane, you'd run and look and try to. I don't remember if I ever saw one when I did it, but I can remember Mary and I used to go out there Saturdays because, of course, during the week we were teaching and couldn't. But we'd go Saturdays or Sundays and spot airplanes.
Did they man that around the clock?
Oh, yes. They had people there
all the time.
Yes.
Well, what about blackouts? Did you do blackouts here in Colebrook? Do you remember that?
Yes. Just had to pull down your curtains and everything. Frank and Dick used to have our street.
They had you pull your curtains, and they would patrol it, kind of make sure that people weren't letting any light out.
Yes.
And then, of course, you went through all the shortages.
Oh, and the rationing we did down to our schools. You know, they closed school one time. They when they were issuing the ration books, they closed the schools for 2 days, and the other 2 teachers came to my building because that was the one in the middle, and all 3 teachers were there at Cone School, and all the people from Columbia came there to that school to register for their ration books, for their coupon books.
Mm-hmm.
And while we were waiting for people to come, it wasn't that busy, you know, Columbia, you know.
No.
This man that taught at the South, at the, what they call that school down there? South Columbia in Cone, and the other one, the Valley School. Yes, the Valley School. Was a man taught there. So he was down there to our building, and he was a man that was kind of lame. He had infantile paralysis when he was a kid, and he taught Mary and me how to crochet when we were doing that.
Oh, while you were waiting for these people to come in to get their book.
He taught us how to crochet. He had learned it during his rehabilitation. See, when he was recovering from polio, what the devil was his name? He used to work as a telephone operator in the summertime.
Well, we'll have to track down his name because that's pretty good. Yeah.
Can't remember his name now. Maybe if I could remember, I don't remember.
Well, Clay, how did that work out? What, each person in the family got a book, right?
Yes, and I don't think Frank has one of those books now. When I was teaching him, we'd be studying the war, you know. I had some of those books that I used to take in to show the kids, and I don't know now where they are. But you had these books, and they had coupons for sugar and for meat and for butter and for gasoline. All these things.
Yeah.
And they tore them out. Of course, we could go up in Canada there on the border, get stuff without coupons.
You could. Yeah.
My mother, when she used to go up here and visit, we'd always go up there and she'd buy herself some meat and some butter. These things that were so hard to get.
That'd be up in Harrison? There on the Line store? Is that the Line store?
Yeah, I guess so. We'd go up there where she could get the stuff. Have some to take home with her.
Is that right? But everybody may do okay.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And, of course, stockings and cigarettes were scarce, weren't they?
Can you remember the stockings we had before nylons?
I do.
It took about 2 days for them to dry. Can't you remember?
Yes.
I can remember when we were in Farmington, having those darn stockings. This was the, you know, remember nylons came out just before the war, but then we lost them again.
Yes, because of
parachutes. So we went back to these old rayon things, and I can remember having those draped over the radiators for 2 days trying to get them dry. Yeah.
And then, of course, with the cigarettes were scarce.
Oh, yes. When we got our big check, you know, we'd get, as I said, $85 a month. And first thing Mary and I would do, we'd go buy ourselves a carton of cigarettes.
Yeah, carton of cigarettes.
Make sure we had those for the next month.
Yeah, right. So that was, and of course, the gas coupons would. You had to qualify. Like farmers got more gas than the regular person.
They got more.
Or if you had a need, I'm sure the doctors got more gas. The war, of course, was over. Was it hard to get materials in right after the war to build houses?
No.
No, you didn't have any trouble.
I don't remember.
No.
Of course, this was a pre-cut house, you know.
This was pre-cut.
Not prefab, but pre-cut.
Yeah.
Like all...
and you came that way.
Bought the house from, was it a Liberty Home or an Ideal?
One of those two houses.
One of them, yeah.
And
came into Colebrook on the boxcar.
Yeah.
On the train.
Well, was the train still going in?
Yeah.
The train was still passenger and everything?
No.
Just in Stratford. Stratford had passenger.
Yeah. You could go to Stratford and take the train to Portland.
And I
did that a few times.
I was just going to ask you.
After I lost my car, after I couldn't get gas for the car that second year that I was here.
Oh, you couldn't get a coupon?
Home. No. And when I couldn't get tires.
And you couldn't get gas or tires.
And so I used to go down to North Stratford. I don't remember how I got down there. I don't remember that, to tell you the truth. But anyway, I remember taking the train from North Stratford a few times to go to Portland on the Grand Trunk.
Well, didn't some people ride on the mail truck?
Probably.
Down to the station down in Stratford?
Probably. I don't know.
Yeah, so you had to give up your car.
Yes.
Yeah. So you built this house in 19, I don't know,
Fall of 51.
the fall of 51 you
Yeah,
built.
because Jeffrey was born in the spring of 52.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Fall of 51.
Yeah.
Moved in here just before Christmas.
Just before Christmas.
Yeah. Of course, Frank's father gave us the land.
And
See, Mary and Edmund built their house the year before, or 2 years before. I can't remember just when they built theirs. Then we moved downstairs over there at the other house.
uh-huh.
And then we built our house.
Right.
And moved out.
Right. And probably Jed gave them the land for that
Yes.
house. He did
Yeah.
that. That was
Yeah. Yeah.
wonderful, wasn't it?
Yeah. We looked at a lot down on, what's Brandy Lane now. There were no houses there then. But we thought that would be an awful pretty spot because it looks right over. It is a pretty spot down there, you know.
It is pretty.
And we went down there and looked around and everything. And Gerald Young owned the land. And he would sell us a lot. But it was going to be, I think, $500. And then there was no water. Something about the water had to come from down under that hill or something. I don't know. There was something about the water that we thought wouldn't be good. And then Jed said, well, you know, why didn't we build right here and he'd give us the land? Well, that was quite a...
Well, that was a wonderful
yes,
gift.
Yes.
It really was.
Yeah.
It absolutely was. One thing I do have down here, I noticed, and I do want to get something on this if I could, is about Ruby Smith. Now, I know on Frank's tape he said when you folks are out in California, you looked up Ruby Smith.
Mm-hmm.
And now her connection with Colebrook, I know she was very generous to Colebrook.
She used to live here in Colebrook. Before she moved to California, she lived here. I think it was the Smith house where the IGA is now, isn't it? I think that was
so.
the Smith house.
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
And she had a sister?
Yeah. Ruby and Maddie.
And they both go to California?
I think Maddie went first.
Maddie went?
And the father was out there. And Ruby, I think, was teaching school around here somewhere. See, this was all before I came here.
Yeah.
But then her father got her to come out there and visit one summer during school vacation. And he tried to talk her into staying. And she didn't think she would go. He said, why don't you just come out and visit? And he conned her somehow into staying.
To stay on.
For a short time, and then she got out there and she did stay.
And she stayed
she
on.
went up high in education. She was one of the state, like a supervisor or something. She was, yeah.
Well, Claire, she left money, and she didn't leave it. Didn't she give it when she was alive to the church? Or
she used to give us gifts at the church.
And did she the school system or any?
I don't know about the school. She left money to the Eastern Star.
She left money at the Eastern Star.
Yes, that's what they used to fix. Of course, Ingram and Shaw paid for that building. But the Ruby Smith money from the Star paid for fixing up the inside of the lodge hall and everything. Oh, yeah.
I did not know
we got quite a same bequest that they did in the church.
In the church.
Yeah.
Had she died then? Or?
Yes.
She had died.
Yes. She wanted her money to go for an Eastern Star home. But then, I think, her lawyer came here. And she was buried when they brought her back here. And I think he said that he convinced her that they would never have an Eastern Star home.
There wouldn't be enough money
here.
or
No.
anything for that.
And so she left it to the Star to use. But I think it was the same amount as what the church got.
Yeah.
And then I understand the church that she went to out there.
They inherited as well.
Got the same. Yeah.
Well, Claire, do you remember when that Smith house was there? Do you remember that on Colby Street? Or?
Yeah, when I first came here, Marion Wells was living there, I think. It was a two-story house. It was an apartment upstairs. Marion Colville and her family, they lived there. And Marion Wells lived downstairs, I think. Frank would remember more about that than I would. But I do it. The house was still there, yes, when I came.
Well, then it was sold to. I'm trying to think. With Pearl, who went in there? I wonder.
Robert Rainville.
Robert.
Had the first one, didn't he?
Yeah. No, they bought that
He
house.
built-
They bought the house and knocked
tore
it down.
Tore it down, I guess.
Yeah.
And built the store there. He had a red and white?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah, I think we've got some on that.
Yes.
And they went in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was. I know that a lot of people found that hard, because it made Colby Street less residential.
Yes.
And of course, we don't really have a residential street in Colebrook, to my way of thinking.
No.
Maybe Monadnock Street.
That is a beautiful street, that Colby Street, and those Victorian houses.
Yes.
And really, it is beautiful.
It really is, and of course, particularly when they had their elm trees that we, that we had to lose because of the blight. But
Did you read in the paper where they're going to plant elm trees in Manchester on Elm Street
yes,
again?
yes, I did read that. It seems kind of. I hope it all works. There are different opinions about the elm tree, whether they've really got a new one that will survive.
Yeah.
Clay, so that was Ruby, and when you were out there, she must have been a pretty
She
old.
was in a nursing home.
She was
95 years old.
She was 95.
Yes, and we went to see her in the nursing home and presented her with her 75-year certificate from the Eastern Star. Carolyn and I, Dick and
that works out just perfectly, because I was just going to say, and I know you were very big in the Eastern Star, so you presented her with her pin.
Yes.
Did she know you girls?
Oh, she was tickled to death just because we're from Colebrook. Now, she knew, I think, probably Carolyn's mother.
Uh-huh.
But when we went in, she said, well, for goodness sakes, and she was just so tickled. Here's this lady, 95 years old, and yeah.
Isn't it?
And we spent the afternoon there.
Visiting
and
telling
home,
her.
having a tea party for us. Yeah. That was nice.
Well, Claire, we will talk a little bit, just briefly about the Eastern Star. You've been very active in that.
Mm-hmm.
Did you
over the years?
Yeah. Did you join?
We joined in spring of '47
here in Colebrook. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've been up through the ropes or the chairs or whatever.
Well, yes. Nobody told me you could refuse. Nowadays they say they won't take it, but I didn't know. I was so dumb. I didn't know I could have refused.
Oh gosh!
Yeah, the very first fall after we joined in the spring, and that very first fall, I went in as associate conductress and went through the chairs.
Yeah,
and I was a matron first. In must have been 47 and 4 would be 51. Yeah, I was the matron the first time, about 51 or 52, right around there.
And then you continued on.
And I was a grand officer 1 year. Then I came back and was matron again here.
Right.
Because our chapter was at a very low point right then.
But it's come back, hasn't it, Claire?
It did for a while. I think now it's in another slump. Yeah. But it did come back. We took in those people like Beth Young and Dot Ducre and Janice Davis and Marilyn Frizzell. We took in a very active group, and they were very, very loyal officers for a long time.
Yeah.
They have stopped now, but they, for a long time, were very
They
loyal.
right into it, and it kept it going.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then, of course, I was secretary after Marion Wells got through being secretary. Mm-hmm. I was secretary for 17 years, I think.
17 years,
yeah.
They still meet, though, all the time.
Oh, yes.
Everything.
Oh, yeah, we had a meeting just this last week. In fact, they took in 2 new candidates just this last week.
So it is still
so they're still hanging on.
Yeah.
One of the few chapters in the state, I mean, an awful lot of them have closed. Yeah.
But don't you think...
I think television there again.
We're right back to that. And look at the Grange.
Yeah. And your Odd Fellows, all of those organizations that used to be the social life.
Right. And now I do think television has had a tremendous effect.
Like Eastern Star, they used to have a regular supper, every meeting, a regular meal. And they'd always have a program after the meeting. They'd play bingo, or they'd play cards, or they'd have somebody come in and show slides and tell about a trip they'd taken. They'd always have a program every time.
Yeah.
And see, they don't do that.
They don't do that. People just It's
Well,
just not the
they've
way it
just
is
lost
any.
interest in those
Yep,
things, you know.
absolutely, you're so right.
Yeah.
But I know that you. I would like to also say that I know you're a big bridge player, and you belong to the ladies' bridge group. Now I know that you're too young to have ever played with the original bridge group.
Right.
But I have heard some about that. And you probably didn't play till after you retired.
I used to play summers some, but I never played like with Doris. I played with Doris a few
Trask.
times.
You played with Ann
But
Brunger.
I don't think I ever played with Doris. But I started playing summers before I retired. The last few summers,
You would play.
if they needed somebody, they'd call me, and I'd
Right.
go when they were still at the Colebrook House playing. You know.
Now that would have been the May LaBar and Ina
Yes.
Dixon, and
I don't remember ever playing much with Ina.
you don't remember Ina.
I don't remember.
Joe
Joe Roberts
Roberts.
from Lancaster. I remember playing with her. That would be Tommy and May LaBar and Mary Keith up there at Stewartstown.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Like that.
different ones, yeah.
Well, now you have two tables.
Two tables, regular.
Right. In the
Yes.
summer, sometimes
we
three.
get a third one.
Yeah. And
People are home from
yeah.
Florida.
And I know you enjoy that a great deal.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know you also play Wednesday nights.
That's
And
WBC,
what does that stand?
Wednesday Night Bridge Club.
And I've got to say, I think that, but that's kind of a new organization. Is that right? I mean, you've been playing now, what, maybe 5 years or longer?
Wednesday nights?
Yeah.
Oh, Ellie, we started when your mother was still alive.
My mother died in
before
89.
I retired.
Yeah.
Before I retired in 85.
And it was
before that we started playing.
Is that
Yes.
right?
We were figuring out the other day. We think it's, 15, 16 years. Ginny usually can tell from remembering when Rick died.
Right.
Because we didn't play until
after Rick died. And Rick died in 1980.
80. See, so it was right along in 82, maybe, something like that. So it'll be 15 years anyway.
Yeah. But that's kind of a little small select group.
Yes.
Of just 4, well, no, there are 5 of you, I guess.
There used to be 5 until Helen
yeah,
died.
and those people, let me see, who we
Joe
got?
LaChance and Ginny and Glenda and myself.
And of course Helen used to be.
And Helen was the 5th one.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so you've been.
We started having 5 because Ginny went to Florida.
Yeah. Right.
You know.
Right.
And she and your mother were still going.
Yes.
And we needed somebody to fill in while she was gone, so we got Joe LaChance to fill in, see. Well, then the first year, Ginny came back and Joe stopped playing, and we went along. Then the next fall, Joe played with us again when Ginny left. And so when Ginny came back that next spring, we said, well, now Joe's good enough to play with us, you know, while Ginny's gone. We ought to do something. So then we conceived this idea of having 5 of us, and one sat out every 5th week, see.
Which worked
and
out
it
well.
worked wonderful, because then when somebody was gone and had to go away, you had somebody to fall back on. Now we have to do some digging to find a substitute.
But you do have Gloria Bunnell, who's very good to come.
Yeah, she doesn't like play Wednesday nights, though, too much.
Oh, she doesn't.
She has a lot of meetings on Wednesday nights with her library business, you know. She has played with us once in a while. Joan Walsh plays with us sometimes. And then this new, the hospital administrator's wife, Crystal. Sykes there. Right. She's played with us 2 or 3 times.
So you do that.
Yeah.
Well, Claire, I've covered everything I seem to have down here. I know on Frank's tape you talked about your grandchildren and
we now have a great grandchild.
No.
Isn't that since Frank's tape?
It is.
Yes, we have a great grandchild now, you know.
Well, they'll have to
Handsome Ransom.
Handsome Ransom. You know, that is Lynn's grand.
And I have to say, I know I am partial, but he is an adorable baby.
Now that is Lynn's first grandchild.
Yes.
And your first great-grandchild.
Right, right.
And his mother is Darlene. And he's adorable.
He is an awful nice baby.
But
I've never heard him cry.
You've never?
I've never heard that baby cry yet.
Well, my
He really and truly, he just does not. You know how sometimes most babies have a spell when they'll just scream,
yeah,
just
but not
holler.
him. Not him. No,
Never.
no,
And he doesn't, he doesn't at home.
no. He's just not
When
a
he's
crybaby.
hungry, he'll
Yeah.
kind of whimper a little bit of something, and they'll feed him.
I'd love to see
But
him. I hope
he's
I will
sitting up
someday.
now,
He sits.
playing with toys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
He's going to be moving before long, I'm sure.
Well,
on his
it's,
hands and knees, because he's sitting right up in good shape and reaching for things. He's going to start going most any time.
well. Anyhow, we've got you on tape about Ransom, and if anybody wants to hear about the grandchildren, they'll have to listen to Frank's. And of course,
Yes.
he's not prejudiced. We
No,
know he's
no,
not
no,
prejudiced. Yeah.
No.
Is there anything that you'd like to add, or anything that you can think of that we could hit while I've got you here? I'm really tickled to have you.
I don't think so.
No, it's
I don't think so.
You've never wished that you had taken when Mr. Knightley came. You never wished you had said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not going to Colebrook."
No, I've been very happy here.
Great. I know Colebrook has been
I've
very
been
lucky.
very happy that I raised my family in a small town.
Oh, I believe
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I believe that. I know
Yeah.
you don't make the money in Colebrook.
No,
the kids don't.
no,
but
you don't.
but
No,
the quality of life is
Yeah.
pretty darn
Yeah.
good here in
Yeah.
Colebrook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All in all, we're pretty lucky.
Absolutely. Well, it's been great talking
Yeah.
to you, Claya, and we'll see how we do.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very
Yeah.
much.